crystalline spires of Cententrum Prime glittered under the light of 3 suns. Inside the towering council chambers, representatives from a dozen species floated, slithered, or stood at their designated platforms. The air hummed with translator fields, converting clicks, hisses, and telepathic pulses into common galactic. Admiral Krell of the Vorak Dominan flexed his biomechanical claws against the podium. His armored exoskeleton reflected the chamber's shifting lights, each segmented plate etched with battle honors. "The humans are a plague," he rumbled. "Their colonies spread like vermin. Their warships violate our borders. Their aggression threatens galactic stability." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Zeperian delegation hissed approval, their iridescent scales flushing crimson. The Lumari pulsed with nervous light, their jellyfish, like forms bobbing near the ceiling. Councillor Vex of the Zeperians rose, his forked tongue flicking. "They refuse to join the Federation. They reject our laws. Their primitive technology is a joke, yet they act as equals." His slit pupils narrowed. It is time to remind them of their place. The Lumari delegate, a floating mass of bioluminescent tendrils, pulsed a cautious blue. "Perhaps sanctions. Sanctions." Krell's laughter was the sound of grinding metal. "You think humans care about trade restrictions? They eat sanctions for breakfast." He slammed a clawed fist down. "We crush them now, or we face 1,000 rebellions when other species see their defiance rewarded." The vote was unanimous. As the war beacon activated, its pulse rippling across known space, Krell turned to his second in command. "Prepare the fleet. We hit New Geneva first, a show of force. Let them see what happens when insects challenge gods." The transmission reached the USN Defiance mid-patrol. Captain Ryan Blake watched the hologram flicker above the bridge's central console. The Council's declaration played in crisp galactic common, every word dripping with condescension. "By unanimous decision, the species designated humanity is hereby classified as a hostile entity. All Federation members are authorized to engage with lethal force." The bridge crew didn't gasp, didn't panic. They just went very, very still. Lieutenant Chen broke the silence first. "Well, that's not ideal." Blake's knuckles whitened around the edge of the console. "Status of New Geneva. Last check. In was 6 hours ago," said Commander Lisa Hayes from the tactical station. Her fingers danced across holographic controls. "Colonies running standard drills. Their orbital defenses are solid, but not against a full Vorak battle group." Blake finished. He turned to the comms officer. "Hail them. Priority alert." Static hissed in reply. "New Geneva, this is Defiance, actual respond." Blake's voice was calm. Too calm. More static. Then a burst of fragmented transmission. "Under attack. Vorak ships. Plasma lances cutting through." The voice cut off with a scream of tearing metal. The bridge lights flickered red as battle stations activated. Hayes' console lit up with incoming data. "Sir, we're picking up multiple FTL signatures near New Geneva's position. At least 12 capital ships." Blake didn't hesitate. "Set course, maximum burn." "Sir," said Lieutenant Chen carefully, "protocol dictates we fall back to Sol, regroup with the fleet." "Protocol," Blake said softly, "just got rewritten." He tapped his wrist, opening a fleet, wide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. The Galactic Federation has declared war on Earth. They're hitting New Geneva right now." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We are the closest ship. We are going in. Any crew member who wants off can take a life pod. No shame, no court, Marshal." Not a single console beeped with a pod request. Hayes smirked. "Guess we're doing this." Blake nodded to the helm. "Punch it." As the Defiance's engines roared to life, the ship's AI chimed in. "Warning, probability of survival against 12 Vorak capital ships is approximately Fei-Fei. Suggested alternative, retreat." Blake leaned back in his chair, eyes locked on the streaking stars of FTL. Override suggestion. Override accepted. The AI replied, Activating combat protocols. All weapons hot, shields at maximum. Good luck, Captain. Hayes cracked her knuckles. You know what's funny? They think we're the underdogs. Blake's smile was all teeth. Let's show them why that's a mistake. The Defiance tore through the void, a steel arrow aimed straight at hell. The Vorak warships descended on New Geneva, like blades through flesh. Their plasma lances carved through the orbital defense platforms first, each station erupting in silent fireballs that painted the black with molten debris. The colonies' shields flickered, then failed. Commander Lisa Hayes watched the carnage from the bridge of the USN Atlantica, her fingers tightening around the armrests of her chair. The frigate had been running silent at the edge of the system, sensors muted, engines cold, standard protocol when facing an unknown threat. But this wasn't unknown. This was calculated. Signal from New Geneva's governor. Comms officer Rivas said, his voice tight. They're requesting immediate evac. Vorak ground forces are already. The transmission cut to static. Hayes didn't blink. Time until the main fleet reaches firing range. 3 minutes, Commander, Tactical Officer Chen answered. Her hands danced across the holographic display, pulling up trajectories. They're ignoring standard bombardment patterns. This isn't a siege, it's a slaughter. Hayes exhaled through her nose. The Atlantica was outnumbered 20-1. Standard doctrine said run. Standard doctrine hadn't met her crew. Helm, she said, bring us about. Full burn toward the Vorak vanguard. A beat of silence. Then Lieutenant Malik at the helm grinned. Aye, Commander, full burn. The Atlantica's engines roared to life, the inertial dampeners groaning as the ship pivoted and shot forward. Alarms blared across the bridge as Vorak targeting systems locked on. Shields at maximum, Chen reported. They're firing. Plasma bolts streaked toward them. The Atlantica shuddered as the first impacts hit, the deck plates vibrating underfoot. Hayes gripped her chair harder. Damage minimal, Chen said. Their weapons are calibrated for our old shield frequencies. They haven't updated their systems. Hayes allowed herself a small, cold smile. The Vorak had studied human tech, but not recently enough. Open a channel to the fleet, she ordered. Rivas hesitated. Commander, they'll triangulate our position. Do it. The comms crackled to life. Hayes leaned forward, her voice cutting through the static. Vorak Fleet, this is Commander Lisa Hayes of the United Earth Starship Atlantica. You are in violation of the Sirius Accords. Stand down, or be destroyed. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a harsh, guttural laugh echoed across the channel. Human, a voice sneered. Admiral Krell, if the intel was right, your accords are dust, your colony burns, and your ship is alone. Hayes didn't flinch. Last chance, Admiral. Krell's laughter turned to a snarl. Fire! The Vorak fleet unleashed a full volley. The Atlantica's shields flared white under the assault, the ship lurching violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Shields at Faye, Chen shouted. Hayes didn't take her eyes off the view screen. Activate Red Gambit. Chen's fingers flew over the console across the Atlantica's hull. Armored plates slid aside. Beneath them, rows of weapon ports gleamed. Not the standard human railguns, but something far deadlier. The Vorak plasma lances had been reverse, engineered, improved. Locked and loaded, Chen said. Hayes bared her teeth. Fire. The Atlantica's stolen weapons roared to life, spearing the nearest Vorak destroyer with blue-white fury. The alien ship's shields buckled instantly, its hull splitting open like rotten fruit. Secondary explosions rippled down its spine, tearing it apart. Silence on the bridge. Then Malik let out a whoop. That's one. Hayes didn't celebrate. Again. The Atlantica fired again and again. Each shot precise, each impact catastrophic. The Vorak vanguard reeled, their formation breaking as ships scrambled to evade. Admiral Krell's flagship is pulling back, Chen reported. Hayes watched the Vorak vessels retreat, her expression unreadable. Then she tapped her comm. All hands, brace for impact. The crew barely had time to react before the Atlantica's engines flared again, the ship surging forward, straight into the heart of the Vorak fleet. "Commander?" Malik's voice wavered. Hayes didn't answer. Not until they were deep inside the enemy formation, surrounded on all sides. Then she spoke, soft and deadly. "Detonate the mines." Across the debris field of New Geneva, the wreckage moved. Human stealth mines, disguised as shattered hull fragments, activated simultaneously, their targeting systems locking onto Vorak engine signatures. The void lit up with nuclear fire. When the light faded, half the Vorak fleet was gone. The rest scattered, their neat formation shattered. On the bridge of the Atlantica, Hayes finally leaned back in her chair. "Send a tight beam to Earth Command," she said. Message reads, "First strike countered." War protocol initiated. Reavers swallowed, and the Vorak. Hayes watched the fleeing ships on the view screen. Let them run. Let them tell the Council what happens when you declare war on humanity. The Atlantica turned, leaving the burning wreckage behind. The debris field around New Geneva glittered like a graveyard. Scorched hull fragments spun lazily in the void, catching the distant starlight. The Vorak fleet hung motionless above the ruined colony, their dagger-shaped silhouettes blotting out the stars. Admiral Krell's flagship, the Voracious Maw, dominated the center of the formation, its biomechanical hull pulsing with victory. "Scan complete," droned a Vorak tactical officer. "No energy signatures, no life signs. Just wreckage." The bridge crew buzzed with satisfaction, their armored carapaces clicking together in their species version of laughter. Krell's mandibles twitched. "Pathetic, I expected more from the humans." He waved a clawed hand. "Send in the harvesters. Strip anything useful before we glass the surface." As the smaller Vorak salvage ships detached from the main fleet, Commander Lisa Hayes watched from the bridge of the USN Atlantica, hidden behind the bulk of a shattered orbital platform. Her fingers danced across the tactical display, counting the enemy ships moving into position. "All units, stand by," she murmured into her comm. "Wait for my mark." The first Vorak harvester ship extended its grasping claws toward what appeared to be a drifting human life pod. The moment its magnetic grapplers made contact, the pod's outer shell disintegrated, revealing a spherical device covered in blinking red lights. The Vorak pilot had half a second to scream before the nuclear mine detonated, vaporizing his ship in a silent flash. Across the debris field, 100 other wreckage's pieces suddenly came alive. Some unfolded into razor, sharp nets that entangled Vorak engines. Others sprouted magnetic spikes that punched through hull plating. One particularly clever device, disguised as a human escape pod, latched onto the underside of a Vorak cruiser before detonating. Shearing the ship in half, Krell's bridge erupted in chaos. "Admiral, multiple detonations. We're losing ships. Impossible," Krell roared, slamming his claws into the command console. "Humans don't use stealth mines. Their technology is too primitive." On the Atlantica, Hayes watched the Vorak fleet scramble. "That is right, you overgrown cockroaches," she muttered. "Run right into the kill zone." She tapped her comm. "All railgun batteries fire at will." Hidden among the debris, 12 human frigates powered up their weapons. Unlike standard naval doctrine, they hadn't clustered together for mutual defense. Instead, Hayes had ordered them to disperse, each ship camouflaged as just another piece of wreckage. Now they opened fire simultaneously, their hypervelocity rounds punching through Vorak shields like they weren't even there. A Vorak destroyer attempted to turn, presenting its stronger frontal armor. Too late. A railgun round impacted its bridge at Phase C, reducing the command crew to pink mist. Another ship tried to activate its emergency FTL, only for a human mine to detonate against its engines, sending it spinning into the path of 3 more railgun shots. Krell watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. "Recall all ships. Fall back to Rally Point Gamma." His second in command hesitated. "But Admiral, the Council ordered us to." I don't care what the council ordered, Krell shrieked. These aren't the humans we were briefed about. His compound eyes flicked across the tactical display as another of his cruisers vanished from the screen. They fight like humans. Hayes finished for him, though he couldn't hear her. She leaned back in her command chair as the last Vorak ships fled. Helm, set course for the Proxima rally point comms. Send a tight beam to Captain Blake. First blood is ours. As the Atlantica and her sister ships powered up their FTL drives, the wreckage of New Geneva continued its slow dance through space. Among the twisted metal, one final mine remained active, its sensors patiently waiting for the next wave of invaders. Its casing bore a hand-painted message in human script, "Welcome to the neighborhood." Meanwhile, aboard the voracious Moor, Krell stared at the tactical display showing 40% of his fleet destroyed. His claws trembled with rage and something else, something no Vorak Admiral had ever felt before when facing humans. Fear, open a channel to the High Council, he growled. When the holographic image of the Zepyrian delegate appeared, Krell didn't bother with formalities. Your intelligence was wrong. These humans, they don't fight fair. The Zepyrian scales flushed purple with irritation. Fair. This is war, Admiral. There is no fair. Krell's mandibles clicked together. You misunderstand. I don't mean they cheat. I mean they think differently. He gestured at the tactical display. They turned a defeat into a trap. They used our own tactics against us. Enough excuses, the Zepyrian snapped. The Council will not tolerate failure. Proceed to the secondary target immediately. As the connection terminated, Krell's second in command leaned close. Admiral, new orders? Krell stared at the stars where the human ships had vanished. Send a priority warning to all Vorak commands, he said quietly. Tell them the humans are not what we were told. Tell them to expect the unexpected. His officer hesitated, and the Council's orders. Krell turned, his carapace darkening with resolve. We follow them, but from now on, we assume every piece of wreckage is a bomb, every retreat is a trap, and every human ship is 10 times more dangerous than it appears. He clenched his claws, because if we don't, none of us are going home alive. The USN Defiance drifted in the void, her hull scorched and bleeding atmosphere. Emergency lights pulsed red through the smoke. Filled corridors, Captain Ryan Blake wiped blood from his brow, his fingers leaving a dark smear across the tactical display. The bridge crew worked in silence, their faces lit by flickering consoles. Outside, the wreckage of 3 Zepyrian cruisers floated past, their iridescent hulls torn open like gutted fish. Damage report, Blake said. His voice was calm, too calm. Lieutenant Chen didn't look up from her screen. Port thrusters gone. Life support at 30%. They think we're dead, sir. A grin split Blake's face. Good. Across the bridge, Ensign Rivas stiffened. Sir, Zepyrian boarding pods, 6 of them. They're locking onto our dorsal airlocks. Blake didn't move. Let them. The first pod impacted with a shudder that ran through the deck. Then another, and another. Alarms blared as the ship's AI marked breaches across 12 decks. The crew waited. Breathing, counting. All pods attached, Chen reported. Her fingers hovered over a single, unmarked key. Blake leaned back in his chair. Seal the bulkheads, then give them a proper human welcome. Zepyrian warriors flooded the corridors in waves, their scaled armor reflecting the emergency lights. Commander Vex led the assault, his twin plasma blades humming. The humans had put up less fight than expected. Their ship was crippled. Their crew, if any survived, would be broken. Clear the decks, Vex hissed into his comm. Leave none alive. His warriors fanned out, their boots clicking against the metal floors. The ship was too quiet. No screams, no gunfire, just the hiss of leaking pipes and the creak of dying metal. Then the gravity flipped. Vex's stomach lurched as the world turned upside down. His warriors shrieked, their bodies slamming into the ceiling with bone-crushing force. Before they could react, the bulkheads sealed with a series of heavy clunks, trapping them in the darkness. A voice crackled over the ship-wide comm. Human male, cold. You declared war on us. Vex snarled, slashing at the ceiling. Now the floor, with his blades. Cowards. Face us like warriors. The voice continued, ignoring him. Big mistake. Then the vents opened. Chen watched the readouts with grim satisfaction. All boarding parties contained deploying countermeasures. Blake nodded. Full spectrum. A hiss filled the trapped corridors. At first, the Zephyrians didn't understand. Then their scales began to itch to burn. Vex clawed at his throat as the gas seeped into his armor. His warriors collapsed around him, their bodies convulsing. Neurotoxin? Reavers asked, eyes wide. Blake shook his head. Pepper spray, industrial grade. The Zephyrians had trained for plasma burns, for vacuum exposure, for radiation sickness, not for the sheer, overwhelming agony of human riot control weapons. Vex writhed on the ceiling, his vision swimming. The last thing he saw before blacking out was a human marine kicking open a maintenance hatch, her rifle leveled at his face. "Welcome aboard," she said. Then the butt of her gun smashed into his skull on the bridge. Blake watched the feed from the security cameras. The Zephyrians lay in heaps, their weapons scattered. His marines moved among them, stripping armor and slapping on restraints. "Admiral Krell's fleet is hailing us," Chen said. "They're demanding surrender." Blake tapped a command into his console. The Defiance's engines roared to life, her battered frame shuddering. "Tell them this." He opened a channel to the entire Zephyrian armada. The feed showed him standing amidst the captured boarding parties, their once proud warriors groaning at his feet. "You wanted a fight," Blake said, his voice cutting through the static. "You got one." Then he triggered the Hades protocol. The Defiance's artificial gravity reversed again, this time in sequence, compartment by compartment. The captured Zephyrians tumbled through the ship like rag dolls, bouncing off walls, consoles, and each other. By the time the Marines dragged them to the airlocks, they were too battered to resist. Blake's face filled every Zephyrian view screen as the airlocks cycled open. "Next time," he said, "bring more ships." Then the Defiant spat out her prisoners like rotten fruit, their unconscious bodies spinning into the void toward their own fleet. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Krell stared at the display. His claws dug into the armrests of his command throne. The human ship, supposedly crippled, was moving again, and it was laughing at him. "Retrieve our warriors," he snarled. "Then burn that ship to ashes." His tactical officer hesitated. "Admiral, the humans are hailing us again." Krell whipped around. "What now, more threats?" The screen flickered. Instead of Captain Blake, it showed the interior of the Defiance's brig. Dozens of Zephyrian warriors sat slumped against the walls, their armor stripped away. One groaned, clutching his head. A human medic tossed him a water pouch. "Drink up, Scales. You'll need it." The Zephyrian blinked. You're not executing us." The medic laughed. "Nah, we're sending you home." He leaned in, his grin sharp. "So you can tell your friends what happens when you mess with humanity." The feed cut out. Krell's bridge was silent. Then, from the back of the room, a young ensign whispered what they were all thinking. They don't surrender. The Sol system hung silent in the black. Earth's blue-green glow painted the hulls of the last human defense fleet, 12 battered ships, their armor scorched, their crews exhausted. Captain Blake's voice crackled over the Defiance's comms. "Hold position. Wait for my signal." On the bridge, Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across her console. "Sir, long-range scanners just picked up the Council's armada. They're dropping out of FTL now." The view screen flared as hundreds of ships materialized. Vorak dreadnoughts, Zephyrian swarm. Carriers, Lumari thought. Vessels, Admiral Krell's flagship, the Vorlash, led the formation, its biomechanical spines pulsing with energy. Blake didn't flinch. Right on time. Aboard the Vorlash, Krell's mandibles twitched in satisfaction. Pathetic, this is all they have left. His tactical officer, a Zephyrian with emerald scales, hissed. No orbital defenses, no reinforcements. Their homeworld is ours. Krell activated the fleet. Wide channel. All vessels prepared to glass the planet. Leave nothing standing. Deep in the asteroid belt, a structure stirred. The Acheron array, a jagged monstrosity of salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity. Its core hummed to life, tendrils of energy licking at the void. Dr. Elias Carter, the array's architect, wiped sweat from his brow. Gravitational distortion at Faye. They're in range. His assistant, a young engineer named Rivera, swallowed hard. Sir, this has never been tested at full power. Carter grinned. Today's a good day for firsts. The array fired, space itself rippled. On the Vorlash, alarms shrieked. Krell staggered as his ship lurched violently. Report. The Zephyrian tactical officer's scales turned pale. Gravity waves. There. The words died as the view screen showed the horror unfolding. The front line of the armada, twisted Vorak ships crumpled like paper. Zephyrian carriers collided, their hulls buckling under forces they weren't designed to withstand, Lumari thought. Vessels imploded, their psychic screams echoing across comms. Krell's claws dug into his command chair. Impossible. No species has weaponized gravity. Then the sensors picked up movement, human ships, what was left of them, riding the waves like surfers on a tsunami. The Defiance led the charge, its engines flaring as it harnessed the array's energy. Blake's voice roared over the fleet. Wide channel. All hands, brace for impact. The Defiance shot forward, propelled by the gravity wave. Railguns fired, punching through Vorak shields like they weren't there. Missiles streaked from the human flotilla, each one finding a target in the chaos. Aboard a Lumari thought. Vessel, Delegate Valith shrieked in telepathic terror. They're using the waves as weapons. They're using them to move faster than we can track. The Defiance banked hard, avoiding a volley of plasma fire. Blake didn't smile, didn't cheer. He simply said, Chen, open a channel to the Vorlash. Krell's face appeared on screen. His exoskeleton cracked from the turbulence. You animals. This isn't warfare. This is madness. Blake leaned forward. You declared war on a species that survived ice ages, plagues, and nuclear fire. You think we'd fight fair? The Defiance's railguns cycled again. Krell's eyes widened. All ships, evasive. The array fired a second pulse. This time, the gravity wave didn't just distort, it fractured. The Vorlash spine, like superstructure, snapped. The dreadnought listed violently, its engines failing. Across the battlefield, alien ships floundered, their formations in tatters. Rivera whooped from the array's control room. It worked. Holy hell, it actually, Carter cut him off. Not yet. He adjusted his headset. Captain Blake, we've got one more shot in the chamber, your call. Blake watched the Vorlash struggle to stabilize. He thought of New Geneva, of the colonies burned, of the billions dead. His voice was quiet. Make it count. The array's final pulse wasn't a wave. It was a tidal force. The Vorlash hull groaned. Then, with a soundless scream of rending metal, it split in half. Krell's last transmission wasn't a curse, wasn't a threat. It was a whisper of disbelief. What have we done? The human fleet didn't stop, didn't hesitate. They carved through the remains of the armada, their weapons singing. On Earth, in the ruins of Geneva's old unbuilding, a single technician monitored the battle. He turned to his superior, eyes wide. Sir, we're winning. The old general didn't smile. No, we're just getting started. The bridge of the USN Defiance hummed with quiet intensity. Every console flickered with damage reports. Every crew member moved with the grim efficiency of those who had nothing left to lose. Captain Ryan Blake stood at the center of it all, his uniform torn, his face streaked with soot and dried blood. The view screen showed the remnants of the human fleet, ships with shattered hulls, engines running on fumes, weapons, systems, jury, rigged to keep firing. "Status," Blake said, his voice rough. Lieutenant Cho didn't look up from her console. 20. 3 ships remaining, sir. Most are running at 40% capacity or less. The Atlantica's down to 1 plasma lance, and the Mjolnir's reactors are critical. Blake nodded. Behind him, the tactical display flickered, a sea of red markers representing the Council's armada, closing in the Vorak flagship. The Dreadmore loomed at the center, its massive spinal cannon charging for another volley. "They're hailing us, Captain," Comms Officer Ruiz said. Blake didn't hesitate. "Put them through." Admiral Krell's holographic form materialized on the bridge, his biomechanical armor glistening with fresh battle damage. His mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. "Captain Blake, you fought well for a primitive, but this ends now. Surrender, and your crews will be granted mercy." Blake's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mercy, you glassed New Geneva. You butchered civilians at Proxima. You don't know the meaning of the word." Krell's antennae stiffened. "Then die with honor." The transmission cut out. The Dreadmore's cannon flared to life, a beam of molten energy streaking toward the Defiance. "Evasive," Blake barked. The ship lurched, but not fast enough. The beam clipped the starboard side, shearing off armor, plating in a shower of molten metal. Alarms wailed. "Direct hit on decks 7 through 9, Cho shouted. "Hull integrity at 30%. Blake gripped the armrests of his chair, his eyes locked onto the Dreadmore, its massive bulk, its arrogant posture. A plan crystallized in his mind. "Helm," he said, voice low. "Set course for the Dreadmore full thrust." The bridge went silent, sir. Ensign Carter whispered. Blake didn't look away from the view screen. "You heard me. Ramming speed." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lieutenant Cho's hands flew across her console, transferring all power to engines, diverting life support to structural integrity fields. Ruiz swallowed hard. "Captain, the Defiance won't survive." "I know," Blake said. He tapped his comm, opening a fleet. "Wide channel. This is Captain Blake to all remaining human vessels. The Council thinks we're broken. They think we'll kneel." He paused, his voice hardening. "Show them they're wrong." A chorus of affirmatives crackled over the comms, the Atlantica. Its hull blackened, swung into position beside the Defiance. Commander Hayes' voice came through, sharp with defiance. "We're with you, Captain, to the end." The Mjolnir, its reactor cores glowing dangerously bright, fell in line. "Just give the word," Captain Voss growled. Blake exhaled. "All ships, full assault. Target the Dreadmore's engines. Keep their attention on you." The human fleet surged forward. A ragged wave of defiance. The Atlantica's last plasma lance fired, punching through a Zephyrian cruiser's shields. The Mjolnir unleashed a volley of torpedoes, each one slamming into the Dreadmore's flank. The Vorak flagship shuddered, but didn't stop. Its point defense guns swiveled, cutting down human fighters like insects. 50 seconds to impact, Cho reported. Blake's fingers tightened around his armrests. "Seal all bulkheads, prepare for collision." The Defiance accelerated, its battered frame groaning under the strain. The Dreadmore loomed larger, its cannons tracking them, its shields flaring as it tried to adjust course. 30 seconds. The Atlantica took a direct hit, its hull splitting open in a silent explosion. Hayes' last transmission was a curse and a laugh. 20 seconds. The Mjolnir's reactors finally gave out, the ship vanishing in a blinding flash that tore through 3 Vorak escorts. 10 seconds. Blake stood, bracing himself. The Dreadmore filled the view screen, its armored hide scarred but unbroken. "All hands," Blake said, his voice steady. "It's been an honor." The Defiance struck the Dreadmore just below its primary cannon. The impact tore through both ships, metal screaming, decks collapsing. For a heartbeat, the two vessels hung locked together, human and Vorak, predator and prey. Then the Defiance's core detonated. The explosion ripped through the Dreadmore, splitting it in half. Fire bloomed across the void, a funeral pyre for both ships. On the bridge of a nearby Lumari cruiser, the telepathic delegates recoiled as one, their minds screaming with the sudden, horrifying realization. They meant to die, the human fleet. What was left of it didn't stop. Didn't falter. They pressed the attack, their weapons firing even as their ships fell apart. And for the first time in galactic history, the Council's forces knew fear. The air inside the ruined council chamber tasted of ozone and burnt metal. Captain Ryan Blake stepped over the twisted remains of a Lumari delegate's hover throne, his boots crunching on shattered crystal. Behind him, human marines in scarred armor fanned out, their rifles humming with residual charge. The few surviving council members huddled together, Zephyrian scales dull with fear, Vorak commanders missing limbs, Lumari floating weakly like deflated balloons. One of the Vorak, a grizzled warlord with half his biomechanical faceplate missing, snarled, "You animals, you don't understand what you've done. The other systems will." Blake didn't let him finish. He raised his sidearm and fired once. The Vorak's head snapped back, his body slumping to the floor. The other delegates flinched. "We understand perfectly," Blake said, holstering his weapon. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "You declared war. We ended it." A Zephyrian delegate, her iridescent scales flickering in distress, tried to stand. A Marine shoved her back down with the barrel of his rifle. You can't just execute us. There are protocols. Galactic law." Blake tilted his head. "Funny, I don't recall you following any protocols when you glassed New Geneva, or when you bombarded Mars, or when you tried to wipe out Earth." He leaned down close enough for the Zephyrian to see the fresh scar cutting through his stubble. "You don't get to cry about rules now." Silence. The Lumari delegate's telepathic voice trembled in their minds. "What do you want?" Blake straightened. "First, unconditional surrender. Every fleet, every colony, every last ship." He began pacing, his gaze sweeping over the broken chamber. "Second, full reparations. You rebuild what you destroyed. Every city, every life." He stopped, turning to face them. "And third, you remember, you tell every species in this galaxy what happens when you pick a fight with humanity." One of the Vorak, younger than the rest, let out a bitter laugh. "You think this is over? You're one species, we are thousands." Blake smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "You're right, we are one species." He tapped his comm. "Defiance, patch me through to the Acheron array." Static hissed. Then a technician's voice crackled. "Array standing by, Captain." The delegates froze. The Lumari's orbs pulsed with panic. "You wouldn't." Blake ignored them. "Activate targeting sequence. Lock onto Centrum Prime's core." "Aye, sir, targeting locked." The chamber's remaining lights flickered as the array's gravitational harmonics resonated through the planet's structure. The Zephyrian delegate let out a keening wail. "You'll kill billions." Blake didn't blink. "I know." The Vorak warlord who'd spoken earlier struggled to his knees. "Stop. We surrender. All of us." Blake held up a hand. "Hold the array." He studied the delegates, their fear thick in the air. "You'll sign the terms. No tricks, no galactic law loopholes." The Lumaris voice was a whisper. "We will comply." Blake nodded. "Good." He turned to leave, then paused at the shattered doorway. Without looking back, he said, "Next time, ask before you pick a fight." Outside, the sky burned with the wreckage of 1,000 alien ships, human vessels, some barely spaceworthy, others salvaged from enemy hulls, drifted among the debris. On the Defiance's bridge, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the feed from the council chamber, her arms crossed. When Blake's shuttle docked, she met him at the airlock. "They'll break the agreement," she said quietly. "You know that." Blake stripped off his gloves, tossing them onto a console. "Probably." Hayes frowned. "Then why?" "Because now they know." Blake interrupted. He stared out the viewport at the broken alien fleet. "They know we don't bluff. They know we don't break." He turned to her, exhaustion and something darker in his eyes. And they know if they ever try this again, we won't stop at their fleets. We'll burn their homeworlds to ash. Silence settled over the bridge. Somewhere in the distance, a damaged human corvette vented atmosphere, its crew scrambling to patch the hull. Haze exhaled. What now? Blake walked to the captain's chair, sinking into it like a man twice his age. Now, he tapped a command into the armrest console. The Defiance's engines hummed to life. Now we go home. The ship turned, leaving the ruins of Cententrum Prime behind. Behind them, the Acheron array's silhouette faded into the void, a silent warning to the galaxy. Humanity had unleashed hell, and the galaxy would never forget.